The stars hung quietly in the cold, dark sky, as if nothing in the universe was moving. But something was, near the edge of Sector Delta 7, where no colony had grown and no trader dared to pass. A strange signal blinked through space. It was old, weak, and human-made, just a small mining beacon left behind decades ago. Most who saw it ignored it, thinking it was junk, but the Zarketh Armada did not ignore it. The Zarketh fleet was vast, over 200 ships, including dreadnoughts, cruisers, and carriers. They were known as planet killers, destroyers of resistance. They ruled over half the known galaxy, and today, they came to see if Earth was worth conquering. Their admiral, Vralka, stood tall on the bridge of his flagship, the Void Rain. His eyes scanned the projection of Earth's nearby systems. "Primitive," he said, voice deep and proud. The other officers laughed quietly. They had studied humans, read about their soft skins, their peaceful ways, their weak military. Earth had not fought a major war in 100 years. To Vralka, this would be a clean sweep. Just one scan, a warning shot, and Earth would kneel. The Armada approached the signal source, the old beacon, still blinking in silence. No human ships in sight, no stations, no defenses. Just rocks, old mining platforms, and cold space. Vralka gave the order, "Begin scan." The alien engineers activated their systems, beams of data reaching out. But then, everything froze. Their screens went black. Their systems reset without reason, one by one. The ship started reporting sensor blindness. Vralka frowned. "Status?" He barked. No answer came, only static, and then a shape appeared at first. It looked like a shadow. It had no energy signature, no weapons active, no escorts, but it floated calmly in front of the fleet, just above a mining asteroid. It was large, over 1 kilometer long, but shaped like no known alien vessel. Its surface was smooth, matte black, with no visible windows or ports. Only one thing was clear, a name printed in pale white letters. "Oathkeeper, human ship detected," said one officer, finally getting a scan through. "But it has no weapons," another added, confused. "No engines either," whispered a third. The crew stared. Was this a trick? A bluff? Vralka narrowed his eyes. "Destroy it," he said, calm and sure. 4 cruisers moved into position, charging plasma cannons, and then the impossible happened. One of the cruisers exploded without being hit. No beam, no missile, no sound, just instant destruction. The other 3 stopped, confused. What just happened? Someone shouted, "I don't know." The gunner cried. There was no attack. The Oathkeeper did not move. It didn't even light up. It just floated, silent. Suddenly, the main screen lit up with a single message, written in Galactic Standard. "You are trespassing." Panic started to spread. Ships pulled back, trying to move away from the silent giant. But as they turned, another ship lost power. Its lights dimmed. Engines dead, drifting like a dead fish. Vralka grabbed the rail beside his command seat. "Who is doing this? Is it electronic warfare?" "No, Admiral," came the answer. "We can't trace it. They're disabling us without firing." Someone whispered, voice shaking. Then, the Oathkeeper vanished, not by moving, but by completely disappearing. From all radar and visuals, 1 second it was there, the next gone. Where did it go? Vralka yelled. No one could answer. Suddenly, an alert sounded. The human ship was now behind their largest dreadnought, the Crushing Blade. Before anyone could act, the dreadnought shut down, just like the last, one by one, across the fleet. Systems began crashing. Targeting went offline. Shields fell. Engines failed. A fleet of 200 ships was now helpless in the dark. And still Oathkeeper had not fired a single known weapon. It moved like a ghost, striking without touching. No sound, no warning, no light. Just fear. Vralka's pride began to shake. He had never seen such power, and he had fought dozens of wars. But this was not war. This was a demonstration. He clenched his fists, trying to give a new command. "Prepare emergency jump." The fleet began to retreat, slowly limping through space. But not before receiving one final message. This was your warning. The screen blinked. The Oathkeeper vanished one last time, leaving behind only wrecks, silence, and terror. And in that cold void, where stars still hung quietly, the mighty Zarketh Armada realized something that shook them to the core. Earth was not defenseless. Earth was waiting, and the humans were ready. The alien fleet drifted like broken toys in space. Most systems were still offline, communications were scrambled, and many ships floated without power. The silence was loud, and the crew whispered instead of speaking inside the flagship. Void Rain, Admiral Vralka, stood frozen. His hands shook slightly, though he tried to hide it. He had led fleets against many enemies, destroyed planets without mercy. But this was something else. One human warship had defeated them without firing a single known weapon. The officers waited for orders, eyes avoiding their leaders. Finally, Vralka growled, "Restart. All scans find that ship." "But Admiral," one technician said quietly, "what if it's still here?" Vralka turned toward him slowly. "Then we find it." Meanwhile, deep in the darkness between ships, something moved. Not fast, not loud, but with precision. The Oathkeeper had returned, but not visibly. It moved in stealth mode, completely invisible to normal sensors. Inside the Oathkeeper, the human crew watched calmly. Captain Rain stood with arms crossed, his face unreadable. His ship had just humiliated a fleet 10 times stronger, but he wasn't celebrating. He was watching, studying, waiting. "Status report," he asked, his voice calm. "No damage taken, all systems optimal," replied the AI assistant. "Good." Rain said, "Let's see what they do next." Back on the alien ships, something odd began happening. Every ship that tried to scan the Oathkeeper had its systems crash again. But not just once. Each crash came with strange images, symbols, unknown patterns, and whispers of sound. The engineers panicked, calling it a virus, but it was more than that. It was psychological warfare. The symbols showed past defeats, planets burning, alien soldiers running. Each one seemed tailored to the ship's own history. And the whispers, they spoke in voices that were familiar to each species, voices of dead commanders, lost family, or old heroes. How did the humans know? No one could answer. Vralka finally saw the images on his screen. He growled in rage, slamming his clawed hand against the control panel. "This is no warship," he said. "This is a nightmare." He ordered all ships to reset their systems and prepare weapons. "We will fire in all directions," he said. "I want that ship found and destroyed." But before any missiles launched, another message appeared. Simple, clear, deadly. "What kind of weapon do you think I am?" The message flashed across every screen in the fleet. And then something unbelievable happened. A sphere of light appeared in the center of the Armada. Not bright enough to blind, but strange enough to freeze everyone. The light pulsed like a heartbeat, and in that moment, gravity shifted. One alien destroyer began rising straight up without engines. Another tilted sideways, crew screaming as they were thrown against walls. The gravity was being manipulated, bent like clay. Graviton. Weapons. Someone shouted, "But that's impossible." Only Earth's top scientists had ever spoken about such weapons. None had been tested, not publicly, at least. But here it was, right in front of them. The Oathkeeper appeared again, above them. This time, still silent, still untouched. It rotated slowly, revealing new markings on its hull, glyphs from ancient Earth cultures. Some alien officers recognized them from museums and history books. Humans had remembered their past and turned it into fear. Vralka gave the final order. "Fire all weapons." Lasers, missiles, torpedoes, everything launched at once. A storm of fire flew through space, lighting up the dark like a second sun. But as the weapons neared the Oathkeeper, they stopped, not hit, not blocked, just stopped, midair. Hanging in space like statues, everyone stared, unable to believe their eyes. The missiles floated, then slowly turned around, aimed back at their own ships. No. 1. Alien whispered. Before Vralka could cancel the order, the weapons vanished. Not detonated, not destroyed, just gone. The crew began to panic, officers yelling, soldiers running. Ships collided by accident. Smaller vessels fled into hyperspace without permission. And through it all, the Oathkeeper remained silent. Captain Rains watched the chaos unfold. On his screens, his face remained still, but his voice held meaning. "Send the final message," he said. The eye activated the transmission, sending one phrase to every ship. "You are not ready for war with Earth." Then, just like before, the Oathkeeper vanished. Gone from space, gone from sensors, nothing but silence left behind. Vralka sat heavily in his command chair. His pride was crushed, his voice gone. He stared at the empty space where the human ship had been. He now understood the message. It wasn't just about power, it was about control, it was about fear. It was about the kind of weapon Earth had created, not one made of fire, but one made of silence. The Zarketh Armada had seen many battles, but never anything like this, and now they would never forget the first time they saw a human warship. Inside the command center of the Oathkeeper, Captain Rains stood alone by the wide observation glass. Space stretched endlessly beyond him, quiet and cold. His reflection barely moved as stars drifted by. The rest of the crew remained silent. Watching him, waiting, they had just witnessed the impossible. One human ship had made an entire alien armada retreat in fear, and they hadn't even revealed everything the Oathkeeper could do. "Sir," a young officer finally said, "the alien fleet is scattering. Should we pursue?" Captain Rains turned slightly, his face calm. "No," he said. "They've learned something more important than fear." He paused, then added, "They've learned doubt." The crew exchanged glances, unsure if that was victory or something else. The Oathkeeper wasn't a normal warship. It wasn't built to destroy planets or show off power. It was built in silence, under Earth's deepest mountains, by minds who saw war not as fire, but as pressure. Pressure that could break even the strongest without firing a single bullet. Rains walked back to the main control panel and placed his hand on the interface. The ship responded with a soft hum. Lights flickering gently around him. "Begin recording," he said. "To Earth Command, this is Captain Rains. Phase 1 is complete. We have made contact. And we have shown them just enough." He paused, eyes narrowing. "They will return, but not as conquerors. They'll come back with questions." Meanwhile, across the stars, the Zarketh Empire was in chaos. Their highest council had gathered for an emergency session. The footage of the Oathkeeper encounter played over and over on massive screens. Some members shouted, others whispered, but all were afraid. "This isn't possible," one elder hissed. "No species can do this." "They didn't use any weapons we know," said another. "And yet, we lost control." One scientist stepped forward and placed a file on the table. "It wasn't technology," she said. "It was the way they think." The council fell quiet. "What do you mean?" Vralka asked, his voice hollow from shame. "They didn't come to kill us," she said. "They came to confuse us, to break us inside. We didn't face a warship," she continued. "We faced a test." The room was dead silent, back aboard the Oathkeeper. A quiet celebration had begun. The cook served warm meals, a rare treat after months in deep space. Some crew members laughed softly, others sat quietly, still thinking about what they'd done. Lieutenant Mallory, the tactical officer, walked beside Captain Rains, holding a data tablet. "I thought we'd be firing missiles today," she said. "I trained for combat, not this." Rains smiled a little. "What we did today was combat," he replied. "Just not the kind they expected." He looked out again into space. "Every alien race out there fights with power," he said. "But humans, we fight with unpredictability. That's what scares them." Just then, the AI spoke. "Captain, incoming signal detected." Everyone turned toward the main screen. The signal was strange, neither a distress call nor a challenge. It was a question. Translate it, Rain said. The words appeared on screen. What are you? The room went silent. No one dared answer, but Rain simply chuckled. That's the right question, he said. They're starting to understand. He leaned forward and replied, We are human. We don't always come in peace. But we never come unprepared. Back in the alien council chamber, the reply came in. They read it out loud, and the entire room fell into silence again. One of the younger officers whispered, What if they have more of these ships? An older general looked him dead in the eyes. What if they only need one? On Earth, hidden under deep oceans and cold deserts, 10 more ships were already under construction, but none of them had left the planet yet. Only the Oathkeeper had been sent one test, one message. Captain Rains returned to his quarters. The hall's dim and quiet. He sat at his desk, writing a personal log. Not for Earth Command, but for himself. They didn't know who we were. He wrote, They saw us as small, soft, unarmed, but now they've seen the shadow of what we truly are. He leaned back, eyes half closed. Let's see what they do next. He said to the empty room, above the stars. The Oathkeeper remained cloaked, silent, watching. And somewhere, on a dozen alien worlds, leaders now questioned the stories they'd been told. About Earth, about humans, and about what happens when you awaken a silent giant. The council chamber on Zarketh Prime had never been this quiet. High lords, admirals, and science elders sat in a circle of shadow, their faces pale under the low lights. Holograms of the Oathkeeper hovered in the Vaiwa center, showing its silent moves again and again. Each time they watched, they noticed something new. A maneuver that defied logic, a system that responded faster than thought. But most disturbing was the fact that they still didn't know how the human ship did anything. This wasn't power, whispered Elder Sovar, the lead technologist. This was design. It knew we would act with pride. It knew we would strike first. The silence deepened. One counselor slammed a clawed fist against the desk. We are the Zarketh Empire. He growled, We do not bow to shadows. But even he couldn't meet Vralka's eyes. The admiral had returned in shame, his great armada scattered like prey. The Void Rain, his flagship, still limped through space, its systems corrupted. My strange energy fields. They sent one ship, said Vralka quietly. Just one. And we couldn't even touch it. The younger commanders shifted uncomfortably. None of them wanted to say it, but the fear was crawling beneath their skin. What if Earth had more ships like that? What if that wasn't their strongest? A quiet voice rose from the corner. It was Zila, the Empire's youngest military advisor, a small, four-eyed female with no war medals but a sharp mind. I believe we made a mistake, she said. The room turned toward her, surprised. We assumed Earth was weak because they never fought us, she said. But what if they were just watching us? What if they studied every one of our battles, every weapon, every ship design, then built something specifically to undo us? Elder Sovar nodded slowly. That would explain how they knew our protocols. They knew how we'd react before we did. The council chamber buzzed, the truth sinking deeper. Earth had not come to be conquered. Earth had come to test the conquerors. And now the Zarketh Empire was the one being judged back on Earth, under the polar ice shield. The construction of Sentinel and Abysswalker, 2 new stealth warships, continued in silence. The engineers spoke little, only what was needed. Every system, every circuit, every subroutine was being built with one goal: invisible superiority. Captain Rains walked along a glass corridor of Earth Command. Watching the snow fall above him, he wasn't smiling. Even after the successful mission, he knew what came next. The aliens would not disappear. They would study the Oathkeeper, try to copy what they saw. They would return, but not with weapons. This time, they would come with words, questions, even peace. But trust would be a lie. Are you ready for round 2? Asked General Valen, walking beside him. The older man had seen war during the early colonization age before Earth retreated into silence. Rains nodded slowly. "They'll either kneel or adapt," he said, "and we must prepare for both." Elsewhere, in the far systems of Zarkith space, whispers began spreading through military bases and research labs. Some officers refused to speak about what they saw. Others claimed the footage was faked. But most knew the truth, deep in their bones. There was a species out there who didn't fight like warriors. They fought like chess masters, silent, patient, deadly. One alien scientist began secretly building a replica of the Oathkeeper using stolen data. He failed, of course. The materials couldn't match Earth's stealth alloys. The eye fried every processor he had. And when he finally tested the ship's basic flight systems, the ship exploded without warning. Inside the black box logs, only one message remained: "Do not attempt to copy what you don't understand." Back in the Zarkith capital, the Emperor finally spoke. His voice echoed across the planet's network. "Send a diplomatic fleet to the edge of Earth space," he said, "under a white banner. We must know their intent." So they sent 3 golden ships unarmed. Polished, slow, a peace envoy, filled with translators, scholars, and gifts. The ships arrived near Jupiter and waited. They sent messages across all frequencies. "We come in peace. We seek knowledge. We wish to understand." No one answered. For 2 days they floated in the void, hearts pounding, unsure if death would come from nowhere. Then shadow appeared above them, the Oathkeeper. This time it did not hide, it revealed itself fully. No longer cloaked, its surface shimmered in black and blue, reflecting stars. It made no threatening move. No weapon activation. A docking bay opened, and a single human stepped out onto the air platform. He held no weapon, wore no armor, just a gray coat and cold eyes. He did not speak. Instead, he handed them a single object, a black cube, smooth and silent. Then he turned and walked away, disappearing into the ship. The Oathkeeper vanished seconds later. As if swallowed by the stars, the Zarkith scholars took the cube and activated it. Inside, they found something far worse than any weapon. They found Earth's history, not the history written in books, but the secret battles, the hidden wars, the empires Earth had destroyed in silence, fleets that were never found, assassinations never solved, ships that disappeared into myths, and at the end of the cube's memory, one final message, spoken in a human voice, calm and clear: "We are not new to war. We simply stopped enjoying it." The Zarkith knew then, this wasn't the rise of a new enemy. This was the return of something ancient, something Earth had been hiding for far too long, and the galaxy had finally knocked on the wrong door. The Zarkith diplomatic fleet drifted near Saturn's rings, silent and uncertain. The black cube they had received from the Human Warship still glowed faintly inside the ambassador's chamber. No one dared touch it again, not after what it showed. Every second of Earth's hidden wars had played in crystal clear detail. Small empires wiped out in single strikes, assassinations that looked like accidents, entire fleets made to vanish, never to be found again. And the humans never bragged, never claimed victory. They had erased the traces, buried the truth, letting the galaxy believe Earth was small and peaceful. Now, with the cube in their hands, the Zarkith Empire understood the truth they had never discovered. Earth, they had been allowed to approach. Inside the lead diplomatic ship, Ambassador Corrin sat alone in his chamber. He looked through the transparent dome at the stars. His hands trembled, even though he was known for his calm. "We came thinking they were prey," he whispered, "but they studied us like hunters." Soft chime echoed through the ship. "Signal detected," the AI voice said. Corrin straightened, his heart pounding. "Origin?" "Unknown," the AI said. "Message incoming." On the screen appeared a single sentence: "Approach the moon." That was it. No threat, no signature, just a command. Corrin gave the order. Their small fleet moved slowly toward Earth's moon. guided by invisible hands. No human ship was seen, no escort. But they all felt it, something was watching. As they neared the moon's surface, they saw a structure, not tall, not glowing, just a black stone tower in a crater. It looked ancient, like it didn't belong to any modern design. No guards, no lights, no sign of life. They landed, stepping out slowly in their environmental suits. The tower had a single door, already open. Inside was a long hallway lined with Earth symbols. Human faces carved in stone, watching silently. At the end of the hall sat a human woman. She was old, dressed in a simple black uniform with a silver badge. Her eyes were gray, calm, sharp. Corin stepped forward and bowed slightly. "We came to understand," he said. She nodded. "You came to negotiate," she corrected. "And that's different." He hesitated. "Are you the leader of Earth?" She shook her head. "No," she said. "I'm a caretaker, a messenger." "For who?" Corin asked. She looked up slowly. "For the ones who decide whether your empire lives or dies." The alien delegation froze. "Are we at war?" Someone behind him asked. She stood up slowly, walked toward a small console on the wall. With a wave of her hand, the walls turned transparent. Beyond the moon's surface, something rose from the shadows, a ship, not the Oathkeeper. Something bigger. It was shaped like a blade, glowing with quiet energy. Its surface pulsed like a living thing, and it was pointed directly at the alien fleet. "That is the Judicator," the woman said. "It is not for war, it is for judgment." Corin tried to stay calm. "What do you want from us?" he asked. The woman looked at him, and for the first time, her voice was cold. "We want you to decide. Will you keep expanding, invading, enslaving? Or will you stop?" Corin didn't know how to answer. He had never been in this position before. The Zarkith Empire had always taken, always crushed. Now they were being asked to change or be erased. "We need time," he said. The woman nodded. "You have 3 cycles," she said. "Return with your answer." Before he could ask anything more, the tower door closed behind her. Their fleet was gently pushed back into orbit, not by weapons, but by invisible force, back on the Zarkith homeworld. Panic began to rise again. The recordings from the moon were shown to the council. They saw the Judicator. They saw how calm the human woman was. And they realized something terrifying. The Oathkeeper was not Earth's strongest weapon. It was just their first warning. Vralka sat alone in his quarters, watching the replay again. His pride was gone now, replaced by something heavier. He finally understood. The humans weren't just a military power. They were a species that had learned patience, control, and silence. And when they finally spoke, entire empires listened. Corin returned to the council with his report. "We must choose," he said. "Either we abandon conquest, or we disappear from history." Some council members wanted to fight. Others begged to surrender, but all of them knew 3 cycles was not long. And Earth was watching, no longer silent, no longer pretending. And the worst part was, they hadn't even shown their full strength yet. The 3 cycles passed quickly for the Zarkith Empire. Meetings were held day and night. Secret councils, emergency sessions, whispers in dark corners. They argued, shouted, begged, and feared. But still, no decision came. The threat was real, yet invisible. No fleet hovered above them. No army stood at their gates, and that made it worse. Because Earth didn't act like any power they had ever known. While the Empire debated, a team of scientists worked deep beneath the capital's surface. They had been assigned one task: understand the human cube, the black data device handed to them on the moon. But it was no normal storage device. It wasn't metal, it wasn't glass. It responded to thought, to intention, even to emotion. One scientist, Varakel, managed to open a new section by accident. She had been thinking about her childhood on a lost colony, one destroyed by unknown forces. The cube responded. It showed her the truth. A hidden Earth task force had arrived before the Zarkith conquest. They had evacuated the population quietly. then left traps that destroyed the invaders without a single trace. Varakel dropped the cube in shock. It rolled across the table, glowing. Faintly, the other scientists rushed to her, but she just stared at the screen, whispering, "They saved us." And we never knew. That same day, another section of the cube opened, this time to the military council. It showed Earth's early battles, not just against aliens, but against themselves, world wars, civil wars, resource conflicts, painful. Images, broken cities, lost children, endless graves. But through that suffering, something had grown. Humans had learned the one thing no empire could teach: restraint. They had developed weapons capable of destroying entire solar systems, but they chose not to use them. They could have taken many planets, but didn't. They watched, they listened, and they waited until someone knocked on their door. And that someone was Zarkith. Meanwhile, far from the Empire, at the edge of the neutral zones, two small alien ships stumbled across something strange. A floating station, abandoned, or so it seemed. Its walls were smooth, black, silent, no markings, no energy signals. Curious, the explorers approached, hoping for salvage. They docked, entered, and found nothing, no bodies. No systems, just a quiet hall. But then, as they walked, the walls lit up, one by one. Screens activated, showing their own ship, their past logs, private conversations. The station had been watching them for months. A deep voice echoed through the halls. "This is a listening post of Earth. You were not supposed to find it." The crew ran, terrified, but when they reached their ship, it was gone. Only stars and the black station remained. The voice returned, calm and slow. "Now you understand why we are feared, back on Earth." Captain Rains watched the galaxy quietly. The Oathkeeper rested in low orbit, cloaked but ready. He stood before a massive wall screen in his quarters, hands behind his back. General Valen entered, carrying a report. "They're scared," he said. "Even more than before," Rains nodded. "They should be," he replied. "But fear is not what we want." Valen raised an eyebrow. "Then what do we want?" Rains turned slowly. "Memory," he said. "We want them to remember, not because we're cruel, but because the galaxy forgets too easily. Every empire believes it will last forever." He continued, "But Earth doesn't forget. And Earth doesn't forgive quietly." That evening, the Human High Council gathered under the Arctic Dome. They reviewed messages from other alien species, some curious, some afraid, some asking for protection. The humans read them all, answered none. Instead, they prepared a second cube. This one would not be sent to the Zarkith. It would be left behind, in a place every species would eventually find, on an ancient relay station near the center of the galaxy. Inside the second cube was not history, but potential, simulations, projections, battle models showing what Earth could do. What would happen if the Oathkeeper had been hostile? What if Earth had sent 10 ships instead of 1? What if they didn't disable the enemy, but destroyed them? The results were terrifying. Entire armadas lost in seconds. Planets cracked like eggshells. And always the same line at the end of every file. But we chose not to. On the final day of the third cycle, the Zarkith fleet returned to the moon. This time, they brought no weapons, no threats, no scientists. Only a message carved into a golden tablet. It read, "We will stop expanding, we will retreat from taken worlds, and we will remember." The moon base was empty now, the stone tower closed forever. But a single human drone descended from orbit and accepted the tablet. No words were exchanged. No promises made, just one beam of light, scanning the message, and then silence. That night, across Zarkith space, something strange happened. Every communication screen in the Empire on warships, farms, homes, and temples lit up at once and displayed one simple image, the silhouette of a human standing before a massive warship, arms crossed, face unreadable. And below it, 5 words, "We are still watching you." From that day forward, every Zarkith child was taught Earth's name, not with hatred, but with caution, with memory, and far away. In the dark corners of the galaxy, whispers continued to grow that Earth had never vanished. It had simply chosen silence, and now silence had spoken. The stars were calm again. Trade resumed across sectors. Whispers grew quiet, and Zarkith fleets returned to their systems. For many, it felt like the storm had passed. Earth had delivered its message, and the galaxy had listened. But peace is fragile, and not everyone in the galaxy believed in caution. Far from Earth, in a forgotten system, a rogue faction of the Zarkith military had gone silent. These were the ones who refused the Council's surrender. They called themselves the Iron Claw, and they did not fear Earth. "Humans are liars," growled Commander Krex, the leader of the Iron Claw. "They use tricks, not strength. They humiliate us with illusions." His fleet of 30 ships circled a distant human colony, unarmed, peaceful, and unaware. It was a small place. Just farms, science labs, and a single orbital tower. Families lived there. Children played under red skies. They had no warning. Krex gave the order. No survivors. The attack was swift. Lasers rained down. Buildings exploded. Towers fell. The colony sent out distress calls, but no one responded. They were too far from Earth's main fleet, too remote, or so they thought, because 37 seconds after the first shot, the Oathkeeper arrived, not from hyperspace, not through a jump gate. It simply appeared. No light, no sound, just there. Massive, quiet, watching. Krex saw it on his main screen and laughed. "One ship?" He shouted, "We are not cowards like the others." His fleet turned and opened fire. 30 warships launched everything they had: missiles, beams, torpedoes. The sky lit up like a second sun. But the Oathkeeper didn't move. It didn't need to. The weapons never touched it. They stopped mid-space, hovering like frozen insects. Then they melted into dust. One of Krex's captains began to panic. "Our systems are shutting down," he cried. "I can't control the engines," another shouted. "My crew just vanished. There's no one else on the ship." One by one, the Iron Claw ships lost contact. No explosions, no visible attacks, just silence. And then the humans spoke. A voice echoed across all ships, all screens, all channels. It was Rain's, calm, quiet, final. "We gave your empire a warning. We gave your leaders a choice. But you chose war." Krex bared his fangs and growled. "Cowards don't scare me," he hissed. He launched one last torpedo, but his ship crumbled before it left the tube. It folded in on itself like paper, then disappeared, just gone. One by one, the rest followed. Ships turned to dust, screams cut short. Systems blinked and vanished. In less than 1 minute, the Iron Claw was erased from existence, on the ground. The colony survivors watched the sky clear. The Oathkeeper hovered above them for a moment, then lowered a supply drop medical kits. Water, power cells. No words were spoken, but the message was clear. We protect our own. Back on Earth. News of the rogue attack and Earth's response spread fast. But there were no speeches, no victory parades. Only a single transmission sent to the Zarkith Council. Your decision was respected. But if your people forget, we will remind them. In the Zarkith capital, fear returned. Not because of what the Oathkeeper did, but because of how fast it responded. How easily it destroyed a fleet, and how little it celebrated. "They don't even enjoy their power," whispered a senator. "They just use it when needed." Vrolka, now retired, stood at a window and watched a transport ship pass. He closed his eyes and remembered the first encounter. And the silence that followed. He knew now more than ever. Humanity didn't fight to win. They fought to end wars before they began, he muttered to himself. Thank the stars we listened in time. In secret corners of the galaxy, other empires began studying Earth again. But this time, not for conquest. They sent scholars, not spies. They sent messages, not fleets. And always they asked the same thing. Can we speak in peace? Humanity rarely answered, but when they did, the entire galaxy listened, because now they knew. The Oathkeeper was just one ship, and Earth's silence was no longer mistaken for weakness. It was a choice, a quiet strength, a promise carved in shadow, that those who attacked would be forgotten, and those who remembered would never raise a weapon again. And across the stars, every child in every empire learned one new lesson in school, a story that was always whispered, never shouted, a tale of a silent giant, a dark warship, and a voice that needed no anger, just 5 words: Earth is always watching you. Time passed, stars shifted, worlds turned, and new colonies grew in the silence Earth had left behind. But even in peace, the memory of the Oathkeeper never faded. Its shape had become legend. Some called it the Black Sword of the Stars. Others called it the ship that whispered death. But all agreed it had changed the galaxy forever. The Zarkith Empire no longer waged wars. They became quiet, reflective, watchers of peace instead of spreaders of fear. Their old war academies were now libraries. The iron banners had been taken down and replaced with a symbol of 5 stars. In a circle Earth's warning, in schools across dozens of systems, children were taught the history of the first encounter, not as a tale of shame, but as a reminder that power does not always roar. Sometimes it waits, and far away, beyond the edge of known space, the Oathkeeper floated once again, still cloaked, still watching. Its crew remained alert, quiet, disciplined. Their mission was not to destroy, it was to listen. Captain Rains stood on the bridge, as calm as ever. He looked older now, with more gray in his hair and deeper lines around his eyes. But his presence was stronger, not weaker. Because he had seen what others could not, what silence could do, Lieutenant Mallory joined him, holding a report pad. Another empire requested alliance, she said. 3rd one this week, Rains nodded. They don't want to be allies, he said softly. They want to stay safe. They think being near us will protect them. Mallory didn't reply. She knew he was right. Earth hadn't claimed any new territory. It hadn't built a federation or empire. It hadn't demanded tribute. But it had become something much more powerful, a presence. A shadow that fell across every council meeting, every military plan, every diplomatic treaty no one dared raise. A weapon without first asking, what if Earth sees this? And Earth always did. Beneath the oceans, above the moons, deep in gravity wells and asteroid belts, their stations listened. Their eye networks reached farther than any race could understand, and all of it remained unseen. Back at Earth Command, deep below Antarctica, the High Council gathered again. They did not wear medals or uniforms. They wore plain suits, simple robes, silent eyes. A new threat had emerged, not warships, but a virus, a digital one, built by unknown hands, spreading across colonies and systems. It stole data, rewrote memories, reshaped truth, and now it reached for Earth. The Council played the signal. Static filled the room, followed by a strange voice. Not quite human, you have watched the galaxy, it said. But now we are watching you. The voice echoed like a whisper trapped in glass. General Valen leaned forward. We've seen this pattern before, he said. Not Zarkith, not pirates, not rebels. He paused, then added, this is something older. The room went cold. Someone finally asked, what do we do? Captain Rains answered, his voice steady. We remind them who we are. The next day, the Oathkeeper was launched again, but this time it wasn't alone. 6 new ships joined it, each unique in design, each built in secret over years. Their names were whispered only once: Sentinel, Abyss Walker, Grey Dawn, Black Halo, Echo Rift, and Final Silence. Together, they moved like phantoms. No announcement, no declaration. Just one silent formation heading toward the source of the virus. And when they arrived, no battle was recorded, no signal returned, no wreckage found. But the virus stopped. Every infected system returned to normal. All memory was restored, and in place of the virus, a single image appeared on every hacked screen across the galaxy, a circle of 7 ships, hovering over a dark star, and one phrase, written in every known language: we were always more than one. After that day, no more attempts were made to test Earth. The lesson had been repeated, stronger than ever, that Earth's strength was not in weapons, but in patience, in unity, in quiet preparation. Captain Rains retired not long after. He returned to a small farm in the mountains where he lived alone. Sometimes, children from nearby towns would find him sitting by the edge of the cliff, looking at the stars. They would ask, "Did you really fly the Oathkeeper?" He would smile gently. "I didn't fly it," he'd say. "I guided it, and that was enough." Because the galaxy no longer needed to see Earth to believe in it. They didn't need to be threatened. They just needed to remember that somewhere, out in the dark, a silent giant still watched. Not to conquer, but to protect, to wait, and if needed, to end things before they began. And every race, every system, every world now knew. If you see the Oathkeeper, it's already too late.